2,100 kilometers. Let that massive, almost incomprehensible number sink in for a moment. Picture your current daily driver. Think about the deeply ingrained routine of watching your fuel gauge dip toward the red line, the mental math of planning your next stop at a gas station, or, if you are currently driving a pure electric vehicle, the low-level background anxiety of mapping out fast-charging networks on a cross-country road trip. Now, completely erase that anxiety from your mind. Imagine pulling out of your driveway with a full tank and a fully charged battery and driving from New York City to Miami, or from London to Rome, or across vast stretches of the Australian outback without stopping to refuel or plug in even a single time. That is the official, mind-bending claimed range from BYD for the brand new Seal 06 DMIA. It is not just a flashy number tossed onto a marketing spreadsheet to grab a quick headline. It is a calculated, aggressive, and direct challenge to everything the global automotive industry thought it knew about the limitations of plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. For the better part of the last decade, hybrids were widely considered by enthusiasts and industry analysts alike to be a compromise. They were viewed as a necessary but temporary stepping stone, a bridge between the dirty, inefficient internal combustion engines of the past and the pure, electrified utopian future we have all been promised. But BYD is making a radically different promise with this specific automobile. It is a promise to definitively kill range anxiety once and for all, bridging the gap between electric and gasoline power without asking the consumer to sacrifice a single ounce of convenience. But we have to ask the hard questions. Is a 2,100-kilometer figure even remotely achievable in the chaotic, unpredictable real world? In an era where automotive claims are heavily scrutinized by regulatory bodies and cynical consumers alike, a claim this bold and audacious demands a thorough, uncompromising investigation. This car is equipped with BYD's incredibly hyped fifth-generation dual-mode intelligent hybrid technology. The manufacturer states unequivocally that this is the absolute most efficient internal combustion and electric powertrain combination currently operating on the face of the planet. So, is this the unvarnished truth of a historic engineering triumph, or is it just clever, weaponized marketing designed to steal market share from legacy automakers? Today, we are going to strip away the promotional hype. We are going to explore the granular, microscopic details of what makes the Seal 06 DMIA tick. We will dissect the physics of its ultra-efficient engine, analyze its aerodynamic design philosophy, evaluate the reality of its interior living space, and ultimately determine whether this vehicle is the paradigm shift it claims to be, or just another incredibly long-legged hybrid. Before we lift the hood and dissect the groundbreaking powertrain technology, we need to understand the physical presence of this machine. The greatest engine in the world is useless if it's bolted to a chassis that fights the air, or an interior that alienates the driver. Can the visual and tactile reality of the Seal 06 DMIA actually match the futuristic claims of its spec sheet? This vehicle represents the latest, most mature, and arguably most refined evolution of BYD's Ocean Aesthetics design language. If earlier iterations of this design philosophy from a few years ago felt a little too experimental or overly stylized for global tastes, the Seal 06 DMIA feels incredibly composed. It's handsome, deliberately understated, and clearly designed by a team of engineers and stylists who intimately understand the crucial intersection of elegance and absolute aerodynamic efficiency. When you approach the front end of the vehicle, you are immediately struck by how clean and uninterrupted the fascia is. Unlike traditional legacy hybrids that still desperately cling to massive, gaping front grilles to cool their large, inefficient engines, the Seal 06 DMIA features a mostly closed-off front end. It gives the car a distinct modern EV-first face. The necessary air intakes are pushed extremely low and wide on the bumper, quietly and efficiently feeding the thermal management system and the radiators without disrupting the visual flow of the car. Every single crease, curve, and line on this vehicle feels like it was meticulously sculpted inside a wind tunnel with one singular, uncompromising purpose: cutting through the atmosphere with the lowest possible aerodynamic drag to protect that massive 2,100-kilometer range figure. Let's discuss the physical dimensions, because context is critical when evaluating a vehicle's place in the market. The Seal 06 DMIA measures 4,830 millimeters in overall length, 1,875 millimeters in width, and sits 1,490 millimeters tall, riding on a very generous wheelbase of 2,790 millimeters. In practical, everyday terms, it places it squarely in the highly competitive mid-size sedan category. It is going toe-to-toe with absolute titans of the automotive industry, like the Toyota Camry, the Honda Accord, and the Hyundai Sonata. It has a substantial, planted footprint on the road, yet the proportions feel incredibly balanced and athletic. The short front and rear overhangs, combined with a sweeping fastback-style C-pillar, give the sedan a silhouette that implies forward motion even when the car is parked in a driveway. Walking around to the rear, the design is anchored by very slick, sophisticated, full-width LED taillights that wrap slightly into the rear quarter panels. If you get up close and look deeply into the light clusters, you'll notice tiny, intricate water drop details illuminated inside the housing. It's a subtle, classy Easter egg that ties back to the Ocean naming convention without being overly aggressive, tacky, or kitschy. Overall, the exterior design of the Seal 06 DMIA doesn't scream for your attention. It doesn't rely on massive, fake carbon fiber wings, aggressive, non-functional plastic vents, or blinding chrome trim to look sporty. Instead, it's quietly, resolutely confident. It's a design that whispers rather than shouts, strongly suggesting that the real substance of this vehicle is not merely in its sheet metal, but hidden beneath its skin. Opening the solid, well-weighted door and stepping inside the cabin, you are greeted with an interior that completely reinvents expectations for a vehicle at this aggressive price point. The flowing ocean design theme transitions continuously from the outside in. You can see it immediately in the sweeping, organic, curved lines that wrap around the dashboard and cascade smoothly down into the door panels and the center console. It creates an enveloping, highly modern environment that feels surprisingly spacious, airy, and uncluttered. The undisputed centerpiece of the cabin, the first thing that inevitably grabs your attention, is the massive 15.6-inch central infotainment screen. In a modern automotive landscape where massive screens are dominating car interiors, BYD has refined their specific approach. The screen is incredibly bright, features a crystal-clear high-definition resolution, and responds to touch inputs, pinches, and swipes with the exact fluidity of a high-end flagship smartphone. And yes, it still performs BYD's signature crowd-pleasing party trick. With the simple touch of a button on the steering wheel, the entire massive screen smoothly rotates 90 degrees, switching from a traditional landscape orientation to a vertical portrait setup. This central command hub is paired with a clean, perfectly positioned digital instrument cluster mounted right behind the steering wheel, providing all the crucial driving data: current speed, exact battery state of charge, real-time energy flow, and advanced driver assistance visuals without requiring the driver to take their eyes completely off the road ahead. Now, let's directly address a common point of contention. A lot of people naturally ask about the long-term build quality of modern Chinese automobiles. There's a lingering, outdated historical stereotype that needs to be confronted with objective reality. So, let's get right into the microscopic details of this cabin's construction. For the vast majority of the interior, the materials chosen are genuinely impressive and punch far above the car's weight class. You'll find expansive, thick, soft-touch surfaces covering the entire upper dashboard and the key areas where your elbows naturally rest on the door panels and center armrest. The seats, clad in a highly durable and premium-feeling vegan leather as standard, are deeply sculpted, supportive, and remarkably comfortable for long-haul, multi-hour journeys. If you step up to the higher trim levels, these seats are both heavily heated and actively ventilated, a luxury feature that used to be exclusive.
So, the car looks aerodynamically sophisticated, and the interior is a modern, spacious, and highly practical place to spend your time. But now, it is time to talk about what truly sets this vehicle apart from absolutely anything else on the road today: the driving experience and the mind-bending, physics-defying technology that powers it. Here is where the story of the Seal 06 DMI goes from being just another standard car review to a deep technical dive into a modern engineering marvel. This vehicle is powered by BYD's absolute latest 5th-generation Super DMI technology. The DM stands for dual mode, but the I is the most critically important letter in that acronym: intelligent. This is a fundamentally electric-first powertrain system. It represents a massive, foundational philosophical shift away from the traditional hybrids that have dominated the market for the last 20 years. In an older, conventional hybrid vehicle, the internal combustion gasoline engine is the undisputed star of the show. It is the primary source of propulsion, and the small, low-voltage electric motor acts merely as a supporting actor, giving the heavy gas engine a little bit of assistance when accelerating from a stoplight to save a few drops of fuel. The BYD 5th-generation system completely and utterly flips that script. The Seal 06 DMI is engineered from the ground up to feel, drive, and respond exactly like a pure, high-performance battery electric vehicle for as much of the time as physically possible. Depending on the specific model and trim level you choose, the car comes equipped with one of BYD's proprietary ultra-safe, cobalt-free lithium iron phosphate LFP blade batteries. You are presented with two battery size options, offering a pure electric, completely tailpipe emissions-free range of either 80 kilometers or 120 kilometers. For the vast majority of global drivers, 80 to 120 kilometers of daily range completely, comprehensively covers the commute to work, running errands around town, picking up the kids from school, and getting back home to plug in, all without the gasoline engine ever waking up. When you slide into the driver's seat, press the start button, put the car in drive, and pull away from the curb, the Seal 06 DMI is completely, astonishingly silent. It runs purely on the instantaneous power of its electric traction motor. If you opt for the top-spec version, you are getting a punchy, highly responsive 160 kilowatt electric motor, which translates to roughly 218 horsepower. Because all of that power is delivered electrically, the acceleration is completely smooth, entirely instant, and incredibly refined. There are no traditional multi-speed gearboxes hunting for the right ratio, no turbo lag hesitation, and absolutely no engine vibrations creeping through the steering column or the floorboards. It is the absolute perfect, zero-stress powertrain for navigating heavily congested city streets and quiet, speed-restricted suburban neighborhoods. But what happens when the battery inevitably runs low on a long trip, or you decide you need to drive across the country? This is where the real mechanical magic happens, and it centers entirely around how the 1.5-liter naturally aspirated gasoline engine is utilized by the vehicle's computer brains. In the fifth-generation DMI system, the engine's primary job is not to turn the physical wheels of the car. Let me repeat that because it is crucial. The engine is not directly driving the car most of the time. Its main, almost exclusive job is to act as an onboard, highly optimized power plant, a hyper-efficient chemical generator that burns gasoline to produce electricity. That freshly generated electricity is then instantly routed to feed the electric traction motor or used to seamlessly recharge the blade battery on the fly while you are driving. The system only physically engages a clutch to connect the 1.5-liter gasoline engine directly to the front wheels at much higher sustained highway cruising speeds. Why? Because the absolute immutable laws of physics dictate that directly driving the wheels with the engine via a single-speed overdrive gear is the absolute most efficient way to maintain a constant speed of 110 kilometers per hour. By completely divorcing the gasoline engine from the constant, highly variable, and wildly inefficient demands of accelerating and decelerating in stop-and-go city traffic, BYD's Powertrain engineers were able to tune that specific 1.5-liter engine to operate almost exclusively in its ultimate thermal efficiency sweet spot. What exactly does thermal efficiency mean in this context? In simple, understandable terms, thermal efficiency is the mathematical measure of how much potential energy contained within a single drop of fuel is actually converted into usable forward motion, rather than being hopelessly wasted as ambient heat expelled out of the exhaust pipe or lost to internal mechanical friction. To put this in perspective, a standard run-of-the-mill gasoline commuter car from 10 years ago might have had a peak thermal efficiency of around 30%. That means 70% of the gasoline you paid for was wasted as heat and noise. Modern multi-million-dollar Formula One race cars built with the most advanced materials on Earth hover around 50% thermal efficiency. BYD officially claims a staggering, almost physics-defying 46.06% thermal efficiency for this mass-production 1.5-liter engine. That specific metric makes it one of the absolute most mechanically efficient production car engines ever created in the 130-year history of the automobile. How did they achieve this? Through a combination of ultra-high compression ratios, advanced software-controlled Atkinson cycle combustion phasing, an electrified water pump and air conditioning compressor to remove parasitic drag from the engine belts, and microscopic friction reduction coatings on the cylinder walls inside the engine block. It's a complete fundamental rethink of how a hybrid powertrain should operate on a molecular level. So, with all of this groundbreaking, hyper-efficient engineering in mind, let's bring it back to the real world. We know the numbers are historically impressive on a laboratory spec sheet, but how does all of this complex, intertwined technology translate to the actual, tangible driving experience out on the open road? What is most immediately impressive behind the steering wheel of the Seal 06 DMI is not its outright speed or aggressive acceleration, but its sheer, undeniable intelligence. The operational brain of the entire vehicle is an incredibly advanced energy management AI-powered system. This computer is constantly, invisibly making tens of thousands of calculations every second. It is constantly automatically blending the various power sources in real time based on your throttle input, the current vehicle speed, the exact state of the battery charge, and even the topographical data from the navigation system. It decides instantly and without any driver input exactly when to use pure battery power, when to quietly fire up the 1.5-liter gasoline engine to act solely as a generator, and when to engage the mechanical clutch and combine the full combined force of both the battery and the engine for maximum highway overtaking performance. For the person sitting in the driver's seat, none of this immense mechanical complexity is felt. It acts as a completely seamless, invisible valet of software and hardware, working quietly in the background so you can just focus on enjoying the drive and listening to your music. There are no sudden jarring jerks when the internal combustion engine eventually turns on. In fact, the transition between electric and gasoline power is so incredibly smooth and heavily insulated that you often have to physically look down at the digital energy flow meter on the dashboard just to verify if the engine is currently running. The ride quality itself is heavily, unapologetically geared towards relaxed daily comfort. BYD's chassis engineers have tuned the suspension geometry to be intentionally soft and compliant. The car features a standard McPherson strut setup in the front and a more sophisticated independent multi-link setup in the rear. This architecture works brilliantly in tandem to soak up harsh, jarring potholes, sharp bridge expansion joints, and rough, broken pavement. It glides over typical road imperfections with a mature, heavily damped sense of isolation that feels significantly more expensive than the car's price tag would suggest. However, because the suspension is purposely tuned to be so soft and forgiving, it does possess noticeable dynamic limits. If you push the car aggressively into a tight, sweeping corner on a back road, you will feel a noticeable amount of body roll as the weight shifts. The steering rack, while incredibly light and fabulously easy to manage when parallel parking in tight city lots, lacks the precise, heavy, tactile feedback of a dedicated rear-wheel drive sports sedan. Furthermore, some automotive journalists have noted that the chassis can feel just a little bit floaty.
And what exactly happens when you demand maximum, full-throttle power? Say, you are attempting to climb a very steep, sustained mountain pass with a fully loaded cabin, or you need to execute a rapid emergency passing maneuver on a short 2-lane highway. When you bury the accelerator pedal into the carpet, the 1.5-liter engine immediately drops the illusion of silence and spins up to high RPMs to provide the absolute maximum electrical juice to the traction motors. And yes, in these specific high-stress moments, you can clearly and distinctly hear the engine noise intruding into the cabin. It is not an inspiring, throaty, emotional sports car exhaust note. It is a flat, monotonous, highly functional background drone of a small displacement engine working incredibly hard as an electrical generator. But it is crucial to remember that this momentary noise is a very small, highly temporary trade-off for the unbelievable, world-beating level of efficiency you receive for the other 99% of your driving life. And truthfully, it is certainly no louder or more intrusive than the strained engine drone of a typical traditional hybrid from any of the major legacy Japanese or American automakers under heavy acceleration. This brings us to the economic reality of the BYD Seal 06 DMI, which is perhaps the most terrifying aspect of this vehicle for its global competitors. In the Chinese domestic market, this massive, technologically advanced, ultra-efficient midsize sedan starts at a price equivalent to under $14,000 USD. That is not a typo. For the price of a stripped-down, bare-bones, subcompact economy hatchback in Western markets, BYD is offering a vehicle with a 15.6-inch rotating screen, an engine with 46% thermal efficiency, and a theoretical range of over 2,000 kilometers.
This aggressive pricing strategy is actively disrupting the global automotive hierarchy, forcing legacy automakers to frantically rethink their entire development pipelines and pricing structures just to remain marginally competitive in the coming decade. So we return to the core, fundamental question posed at the very beginning of this exploration. Is the BYD Seal 06 DMI truly the most efficient, must-buy car of its kind on the market as we look toward the late 2020s? Based on the sheer, unprecedented depth of the engineering technology, the unbelievable, record-breaking thermal efficiency of the gasoline engine, and the remarkably refined way the entire system operates seamlessly in the real world, the answer has to be a resounding, undeniable yes. It delivers on its core, audacious promise with a staggering level of real-world effectiveness. The final objective verdict on this machine is clear. The Seal 06 DMI is not a completely flawless vehicle. The interior has a few cheap, scratchy touch points if you look closely enough below the knee line. The suspension is unapologetically tuned for relaxed, isolated comfort rather than thrilling, dynamic handling, and the small gasoline engine certainly makes its presence known vocally when you demand absolute maximum power on a steep incline. But complaining about these minor, predictable flaws feels remarkably like complaining about the specific font size printed on a multi-million-dollar winning lottery ticket. They are incredibly minor footnotes in what is unequivocally a revolutionary, paradigm-shifting story for the global automotive industry. This car represents a massive, undeniable shift in how we approach personal transportation. It offers all the peace, quiet, smooth acceleration, and environmental benefits of daily, pure electric driving, providing over 100 kilometers of zero-emission EV range on the top trim level. But it completely, surgically eliminates the lingering psychological fear of road trips and dead batteries by combining that electric capability with the theoretical, mind-bending ability to cross entire continents, states, or countries on a single, standard-sized 65-liter tank of fuel. It isn't just a slightly more efficient hybrid, it is entirely redefining what the word hybrid actually means for the modern consumer. It proves definitively to the world that you don't necessarily need to saddle a passenger car with a massive, heavy, resource-intensive, and incredibly expensive 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack just to achieve incredible anxiety-free range. You simply need a profoundly smarter, AI-driven energy management system and a mastery of thermal efficiency. This isn't just a great hybrid vehicle, it is a loud, technological wake-up call that makes you seriously, genuinely question whether you or anyone else even needs to buy a pure EV right now, given the current state of global charging infrastructure. It bridges the massive gap between the combustion engine past and the fully electrified future so perfectly, so seamlessly, and so affordably that it might just be one of the most practical, relevant, and utterly game-changing passenger cars on the planet today. But the global automotive landscape is shifting and evolving more rapidly than ever before, and the ultimate, final judge of this specific technology is the consumer holding the wallet. What do you think about this highly optimized dual powertrain engineering approach? Is a massive combined real-world range of over 2,000 kilometers the true definitive game changer the industry has been desperately waiting for to finally kill range anxiety? Or is it just unnecessary, heavy technological overkill for the average daily driver who only travels 30 miles a day? Given the choice, the vast capabilities, and the incredibly disruptive price point, would you choose this hyper-efficient plug-in hybrid over a pure battery electric vehicle today? Let us know your thoughts, your driving habits, and your rationale down in the comments below.